On Christmas Eve, 1968, astronaut Bill Anders snapped a photo of the Earth as Apollo 8 orbited the moon. Those three guys were surprised to see from their eyes what a planet looked like an Earthrise, a blue orb hovering over the moon's gray horizon with deep oceans and silver skies. It was our world's first glance at itself, our first chance to see a shared reality, a declared stance, and a commonality, a glimpse into our planet's mirror. And as threats drew nearer, our own urgency became clearer as we realized that we hold nothing dearer than this floating body we all call home. We've known that we're caught in the throes of climactic changes some say will just go away, while some simply pray to survive another day. For it is the obscure, the oppressed, the poor who, when the disaster is declared done, still suffer more than anyone. Climate change is the single greatest challenge of our time. Of this, you're certainly aware. It's saddening, but I cannot spare you from knowing an inconvenient fact, because it's getting the facts straight that gets us to act and not to wait. So I tell you this not to scare you, but to prepare you, to dare you to dream a different reality where, despite disparities, we all care to protect this world, this riddled blue marvel, this little true marvel, to master the verve and the nerve to see how we can serve our planet. You don't need to be a politician to make it your mission to conserve, to protect, to preserve that one and only home that is ours. To use your unique power to give next generations the planet they deserve. We are demonstrating, creating, advocating. We heed this inconvenient truth because we need to be anything but lenient with the future of our youth. And while this is a training in sustaining the future of our planet, there is no rehearsal. The time is now, because the reversal of harm and protection of a future so universal should be anything but controversial. So, Earth, pale blue dots, we will fail you not. Just as we chose to go to the moon, we know it's never too soon to choose hope. We choose to do more than cope with climate change. We choose to end it. We refuse to lose. We do this and more, not because it's very easy or nice, but because it is necessary. Because with every dawn, we carry the weight of the fates of this celestial body orbiting a star. And as heavy as that weight sounded, it doesn't hold us down, but it keeps us grounded, steady, ready, because an environmental movement of this size is simply another form of an Earthrise. To see it, close your eyes, visualize that all of us in this room and outside of these walls or in these halls, all of us change makers, or in a spacecraft floating like a silver raft in space, and we see the face of a planet anew. We relish the view, we witness its round green and brilliant blue, which inspires us to ask deeply, wholly, what can we do? Open your eyes, know the future of this wise planet is right in sight, right in all of us. Trust this earth uprising, all of us bring light to exciting solutions never tried before, for it is our hope that implores us at our uncompromising core to keep rising up for an earth more than worth fighting for.
Please welcome Madeleine Para.
Thank you, everybody. You haven't changed. You still stand up for people before they open their mouths. So, welcome. As you heard, I'm Madeleine Para, your executive director, and I'm honored and delighted to be here with you. So welcome to those of you who are sitting right here in front of me here at the Omni. Oh my God, that feels so good. And welcome to everybody watching from home or with your CCL buddies. We are an unstoppable organization, and that's because of you. So here we are, we're at our first in-person national conference since 2019. And so I also want to thank the staff who clearly haven't forgotten how to organize a conference or lost any of their courage. So Allison Kubisco and Kathy Orlinsky and their team, thank you so much. I love Amanda Gorman. And when I look at her, I think something's going right in our country. Because the people and the places that Amanda Gorman comes from produced a person like that, somebody who suffered and struggled, and yet comes forth with wisdom and beauty that benefits so many of us. So would you just please close your eyes for a minute and think about who you know or an experience that you've had where you could think to yourself, something's gone right and going right in our country. Just go pause for a sec while you do that. Maybe you met them in your travels, who knows? Okay, thanks. You know, we value optimism at CCL, and it can be very hard these days to find that, you know, in ourselves when the news is so gut-wrenching day after day. There's a book I've been reading by Lynn Twist called The Soul of Money, where she writes about the work of the Hunger Project in Bangladesh. And it was from a few decades ago when Bangladesh was one of the poorest countries in the world. And the cool thing is that they're not as poor now. Twist wrote about talking with Bangladeshis to learn about their culture, attitudes, and challenges. And then this sentence jumped out at me when I was reading. She wrote, "It became clear that after so long subsisting on foreign aid, the people had lost touch with any sense of their own competence or any vision of their country as capable of success." And that sentence caught my attention because that's a feeling I see us battling here in the United States, though for different reasons. The people had lost touch with any vision of their country as capable of success. So the Hunger Project, they designed a workshop for Bangladesh that they called the Vision, Commitment, and Action Workshop. And the program started by asking everybody to close your eyes, kind of like I just did, and envision a self-reliant, self-sufficient Bangladesh. And they asked questions like, what would it look like if Bangladesh were a country that was exporting its finest quality goods? What would it look like if Bangladesh were known for its art and music and poetry? What would it be like if Bangladesh leadership included women, men, and young people? What would all that look like? And the author describes how hundreds of people sitting in a park sat quietly next to each other with their eyes closed, thinking about that. And then one by one, these tears started streaming down their faces until like hundreds of them were crying just as they considered those questions. And it made me cry too, reading it. And it made me ask myself, what do we need to envision about ourselves here in the United States? So this is what I came up with. I hope you find your own answer to that question too. What if the United States was known for its generosity, ingenuity, and problem solving? What if we were known for the strength of our democracy? What if we were known for unity in the face of our biggest challenges? I believe we were known for these things over the course of our history, that we've been known for those things, and I believe those things still reside in us. So further on in the Bangladesh workshop, the participants were invited to commit to being the people who would make that vision real. And here I am looking at you all. More than any other reason, I believe that that's the reason why we're here in CCL, to make real our vision of humanity's future, a livable world and a healthy climate. And we are not backing off, and to commit to being the people who make that vision real. So that starts with remembering who we are really, and to stop hating ourselves and our neighbors and our politicians and remember who we and they are. Whew. So again, welcome to the June 2022 conference, live from Washington, D.C. Okay, here's what's coming up. We're going to honor Mark Reynolds and hear from him. Then I'm going to cry some more. Then I'm going back to the podium and tell you where we are in the process of mapping out our future policy and strategic focus. And since we are nothing without you, our volunteers, we asked one of you, Nicole Hammond, to share her story with you. Allison Kubisco will then go over the rest of the agenda. And I'll warn you, this is unlike what tradition I come from, but given the fullness of this agenda, we might go over just a few moments or minutes. Uh-oh. Okay, thank you.
Words, because his impact is just so much bigger than that.
His kindness, that is the bridge to people hearing what he has to say.
Being executive director, for him, wasn't just a job. I think it was a calling.
What I think made him a really great executive director is he has a way of making whoever he's talking to feel like they're the most important person.
He has like this unbridled belief in the best that each of us have to offer and the expectation that each of us will give nothing less than our best.
It is truly amazing that he got thousands and thousands of volunteers year after year from all over the country with all different viewpoints to try and say this one thing to members of Congress and their staff.
I think that his style involves helping people discover where they should be putting their time and talent.
He hired awesome people, and then he got out of the way and let them do their jobs.
Marshall said about Mark that his leadership style was like a great jazz band leader who gets the right group of people together and then just lets them jam.
He recognized Madeleine Para's talent, but not just Madeleine, really all of the senior level CCL staff. And I think that that staff carry Marshall's and Mark's legacy really close to their heart.
He leads with his heart, and there's just so much to be learned from that.
He leaves his position as executive director with a really firm foundation for us to build on.
I cannot wait to welcome him with open arms to board service here.
He will be a CCL volunteer for as long as it takes to get old climate legislation passed in DC, as well as around the world. And then I expect he'll work on the next solution and the next solution, because I know that Mark's in this for the long haul, because he's committed to a livable world. And I just wanted to say, I love you, Mark.
Yep. Please welcome Mark Reynolds.
I just want you to know how much I feel deeply known, loved, and appreciated. And I want to thank Madeleine and our two board chairs, Dr. Natasha DeJarnette and Zori Zimmerman, for having that happen. I want to thank this part, reading glasses, great. Natasha, Lisa, Joe, Sheeling, Adeline, and Susan for your kind comments. And I also want to thank Leslie Beatty and our marketing department. This was a list attendance project. And I think it would be really easy to see that video and say, yeah, that video's great, but they're always great. And I think that would be a big mistake. You know, there's a German colloquialism that says, kein Meister ist vom Himmel gefallen. And literally it translates as, masters don't fall out of the sky. But what it really means is, amazing shit doesn't just happen by itself. Right? We have our marketing department put stuff out and we expect it to be like that. And if you come to this conference, if you've been to it before, you have a certain expectation of what this conference is going to be like. Yesterday we had our board meeting and our audits were presented by our auditors. Our auditors are in awe of our CFO, Olivia Malonis, and her team and the way they do their work. So I think that we are known very well for the kind of way we're able to focus in the face of anything and stay focused. And I think we're also known for generosity and the way we work with people. But I also think we should be similarly known for impeccability, because you and I are an organization where every volunteer and every staff member always asks themselves to go the extra mile, every time. And so when we put things on, they happen like this. And so in this particular case, I'd like to acknowledge our marketing team again for that piece, and could we give them a hand, please? The other thing about this organization that blows me away is, like you, I've put all of myself into this for years. It's what I think about 24/7. And the thing about this organization is no matter how much I put into it, it gives me 10 times back. So as much as I give this organization, I get back way more than I could possibly give it. So you could say, what do you get from this organization? Well, first of all, I got you. And that's a pretty good deal in my view. And the other thing is having the privilege of working on what is hopefully the most important issue of our lifetime and being able to do it with this group of people. That is just a debt that I intend to spend the rest of my life trying to pay off. Also, let me just say how cool it was to get a mask with a CCL logo. Like all the cool CCL stuff I have, one with a logo mask was not one of the ones I expected to get. Over the last couple of years, you have heard the phrase quite a few times that a carbon tax is not a silver bullet. And I think when you hear that, we should celebrate that, because nobody says any other solution to climate change isn't a silver bullet. And the reason they don't say it about anything else is because nobody else has made the broad, effective, coherent argument for how essential a price is to solving climate change. So when you hear that, what I think you should do is celebrate is how effectively you've made the argument so that the only solution that ever gets pushed back on is a carbon tax. Frankly, I've never liked that analogy. Because of all the time that I sit around and think about how we're going to solve this, I have never in my life thought, I wonder if today's the day that we're going to shoot the werewolf. Because that's what silver bullets are supposed to do, right? They're designed to kill a werewolf. I've never thought of that. Here's the analogy I prefer. You know the evolutionary charts that you see, and somehow one day the creature gets out of the ocean and gets onto land, and then it starts to crawl, and it crawls for quite a while. And then one day she stands up. And when she stands up, everything going forward is impacted and a reflection of that moment. So I think when the United States puts a price on carbon, actually says to the rest of the world, we're going to hold ourselves to account for the part of the mess we made, it will transform the entire climate movement and shape everything that happens for climate going forward. So today and tomorrow, let's have a great conference. Let's get her up on her feet. And again, I just want to thank you for the extraordinary life you've given me. Thank you so much. Kristen, is that good? Thank you.
Mark, we really wanted to give you a Tesla, but we knew you probably wouldn't like that too much. So we gave you a collection of all the photos we could find because we know you treasure those.
Thank you so much. Love.
Okay, Madeleine, part 2. All right, let's turn our minds now to where we're going next, because I know you're eager to hear about that. So I'll start by saying one of the things I've loved about being executive director, about becoming it, it's been 5 whole months, has been the opportunity to meet with leaders of other organizations and think with them about strategy and collaboration. It's been useful and fun, and I feel like I've been making new friends, and it just goes really well with feeling like I have you also. One of those friends spends a lot of time on Capitol Hill, and he told me that the last 5 yards are the hardest in football and in politics. Now, anybody who knows me knows I have no business talking about sports, especially football. But I think it's not uncommon to get most of the way down the field and then be frustrated by the final plays. You know, touchdowns don't always get scored. Sorry, Packers. And bills can get stalled. So I believe that's where we are now, in the last 5 yards of budget reconciliation. As a reminder, budget reconciliation allows certain kinds of legislation to pass with a simple majority that avoids the filibuster. And with Democrats holding a slim majority in the Senate, it's become clear that they would use that to try to pass major legislation, including on climate. And that was quite a game plan. Not done yet. Together, we at CCL put carbon fee and dividend into Congress's playbook. That took years. And then since last summer, we helped them run that play and move incredibly far down the field during the budget reconciliation process. You know, last fall, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and other major news outlets, they were all reporting that our preferred policy was under serious consideration, and that would not have happened without CCL's advocacy and your hard work. Last summer, just to remind you, we also had great success with our supporting ask legislation. We helped attract over 40 Republican co-sponsors for the Growing Climate Solutions Act, which helped it pass the Senate with an overwhelming 92 votes. And we helped other bipartisan energy policies like the SCALE Act, the Climate Ready Fisheries Act, the Use It Act, and the BEST Act make it all the way to becoming law. Still, we can see those final 5 yards of reconciliation stretching out in front of us. And the odds are against us getting a carbon price this round. I think you know this already. We might, because the clock hasn't run out yet, and we will keep at it until it has, and then we'll keep going. We need to work for all the gains we can get, and so that means that if budget reconciliation with significant climate legislation is developed, we'll be mobilizing to support that, with or without a carbon fee in it. Yeah. If we don't get a win on carbon pricing this Congress, we'll continue working to bring Republicans and Democrats together to get that passed. Either way, we're going to take the gains that we made in this Congress and continue to move forward with our mission. And since many of you are new here, just to remind you, CCL's mission is to build the political will for a livable world. Here at CCL, we're building the political will for a livable world. These last few months have shown us that we haven't quite reached critical mass when it comes to political will for major carbon pricing legislation. There just isn't enough quite yet. So we'll have more work to do, and we'll keep doing that. Late last year, we began to explore what additional efforts we could make. And again, not by abandoning our relentless pursuit of carbon fee and dividend, because there is truly nothing comparable to its impact on emissions, and we remain committed to that policy. But by adding policies that are also needed to achieve a healthy climate, and which will help build the additional political will that, to help pass the larger ones. All right, so today, I am excited to share that in addition to our pursuit of carbon fee and dividend, CCL will throw our weight behind carefully chosen energy and nature-based policies. Our process began with identifying a team and gathering expert information about other policies. We did over 30 interviews this year with climate leaders, modelers, economists, environmental justice advocates, and eco-right leaders. And we got valuable input from you, our volunteers. This process made it clear to me that there are many, many smart people in the world working on this, and I found that reassuring. It was a privilege to meet with them and to learn from them. You also need to know they hold your work in high regard, and many of them would dearly, dearly love for us to partner with them on their particular approach. From this process, 2 distinct policy areas emerged that nicely complement carbon fee and dividend. And those areas are building the clean energy economy and pursuing nature-based solutions, starting with protecting and growing forests. Policies in those 2 areas can help us lock in emission cuts before and after a carbon price is enacted. They'll help us build the additional political will that we need in Congress. They'll broaden and strengthen our supporter base, and crucially, they'll help us drive greater emissions reductions faster. Our decision to focus on these two areas is supported by the most recent report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which highlighted the energy and land use sectors as having the greatest and most cost-effective potential to reduce greenhouse gases. So these solutions are going to be critical in reducing greenhouse gases enough to reach the Paris targets. You know, in recent months, who would have guessed inflation and war in Ukraine? In recent months, those have highlighted just how important clean energy really is, in the clean energy economy. Clean energy promotes national security. It gets Americans off the roller coaster of prices at the pump. It improves our air quality and therefore our health, and it mitigates climate change at the same time. So we're looking closer at policies that will electrify buildings, increase efficiency and energy equity, strengthen our nation's power grid, and update how power is transmitted across the country. And as we saw with a lot of our supporting asks, policies in this area offer rich opportunities for bipartisan cooperation. For those natural or land-based policies, climate solutions, we're particularly interested in starting with the opportunities presented by forests. Reforestation helps store and remove carbon, and it doesn't stop there. Healthy forests help us and other species adapt to an already changing climate. Urban forests can save lives in a heat wave. State and local forest issues can offer a strategic way for us to work with a variety of people across rural, urban, and suburban communities. Everybody has trees, and across political identities. So I'm grateful to all the staff and volunteers and outside experts who've contributed to our process so far. I'm eager to see what we can do when we harness the power of markets, technology, and nature to solve climate change. And I'm predicting that we're going to have lots of fresh and satisfying ways to engage in our communities and also with our members of Congress because we've added these additional focuses. So there's a lot of work yet to be done, though, to solidify the particular policy choices that we're going to advocate for underneath those broader categories of clean energy and nature-based solutions. So also, you know, when we started this process, we thought budget reconciliation would be done, right? And it's not. And the outcome of budget reconciliation I think, should have a lot of bearing on which particulars we dive into. So that's to say, please consider this to be an interim report to you today. While we work out the specific policies, what's our policy and strategic focus right now this year? Good you asked. Our policy agenda is to get the strongest possible climate provisions passed through budget reconciliation and to move Republicans forward on our supporting asks, of course, Democrats too. Our Vice President of Government Affairs, Danny Richter, laid this out really clearly in his 2 lobby trainings in May. So go have terrific lobby meetings tomorrow, whether that's tomorrow or in the next couple of weeks, and be prepared to mobilize as legislation, presumably budget reconciliation, advances, or the Growing Climate Solutions Act. Okay. Our strategic agenda is to bring calls for climate action into the campaigns that are playing out across the country between now and November, between now and the elections, and to make sure that environmentally minded people are voting and to grow our strength, our grassroots strength, so that we're ready for action when the new Congress comes in next year. And if you happen to be eager to get started in the new policy areas, the place to start is by educating yourselves and the people in your groups. Our recent national calls are a resource, as are the breakout sessions we're offering today. And as a matter of fact, Brett just uploaded a new page to Community on forests, so he's ready for you so that you can dive in there. You know, there's nobody I'd rather be working with than you guys to solve this problem. I know you're going to remain driven by the values that we've seen you display since day one. So your passion, your commitment, your creativity, and the way you support each other. That's really important. So we're going to strive step by step for a healthy climate on behalf of everything we hold dear, and together we're going to do what it takes to build the political will for a livable world. And I'm just going to come right back to the poetry of Amanda Gorman. So earth, pale blue dot, we will fail you not. Okay. Thank you.
Please welcome Susan Adams.
Hello, everybody. So as you all know, volunteers are the lifeblood of CCL, and we couldn't do any of the awesome and amazing things that we do without you. And so that's why it's a really special privilege for me as the regional coordinator for the Third Coast to be introducing somebody who's very dear to me, a volunteer in our region, Nicole Hammond. So Nicole has actually been involved with CCL since she was in high school in 2016, and then she's been kind of trailblazing ever since, and you're going to really enjoy her personal story. But I had the good fortune that she decided to go to graduate school in Louisiana, in my region, yes. And so I have gotten to know Nicole over the last couple of years and to love her so much. Nicole has stepped up while she's in graduate school to both be the state coordinator for Louisiana, and she supports almost 1,000 volunteers in that state. But she is also the co-chair of the CCE Third Coast Board of Directors, and she's going to graduate school full-time, and she's only 23. So she's the kind of person who is seemingly just as comfortable leading a meeting with a populist Senate Republican as she is donning a purple wig and spinning tunes as our DJ for our virtual dance parties for our regional conference. So anyway, she's an extraordinary person, and I'm just so honored to introduce you to Nicole Hammond.
Well, thank you, Susan, for that wonderful introduction, and it's an honor to be following Madeleine and Mark. So when I was first approached by Susan and Allison to be the volunteer keynote speaker, my first question was, what is the goal while I'm up here speaking to you all? And they had shared with me that the goal as the volunteer keynote speaker is to basically share your story, how you got to where you are. And I thought an excellent way to do this would be through storytelling. This is a quote from one of my favorite books that I'm currently reading. So the book is titled Where the Crawdads Sing, and the quote is, "I wasn't aware that words could hold so much. I didn't know a sentence could be so full." So storytelling is an excellent tool that's been used in many cultures to share one's story and experiences, and hopefully inspire the listener to form a connection with the person who's sharing that story. So today I'm going to tell you my story, but I'm actually going to do it through pictures. So I took that quote and edited it. I thought it was pretty creative, thanks to the laughing. So to start off, I'm going to kind of walk you through my journey as a child and where I am now. So as a child, I'm from the neighboring state of Maryland originally. I spent a lot of time along the Chesapeake Bay, which is where I formed my interest in marine science and aquatic sciences. And we have a little meme in the middle that I thought was pretty funny that I created. So as a child, I really fostered that interest for marine and aquatic sciences, but I didn't always have exposure to what we consider outdoor or green spaces. And it was through my enrollment in Girl Scouts that I really, any Girl Scouts in the room? Okay, woo. Where I truly kind of fostered and had those experiences in outdoor spaces and really developed my interest in environmental science. So the picture on the top right-hand side has this wonderful woman, Miss Sabrina Fu. And she's actually one of the main reasons why I'm standing here with you all today, and plugged me into the local CCL chapter, and I'll talk a little bit about her later on. So it was actually also in high school that I really kind of took my passion and interest in environmental science and kind of was able to see how that would translate to potential careers. So I'd interned at my local environmental education center, did a lot of work with watershed and environmental education. I also interned with my local county government in Ellicott City, Maryland, where we did a lot of work on stormwater management. So I graduated high school in 2016. And as a senior, I was applying for colleges, which was a process, kind of a new process for me. And I got accepted to a college called Salisbury University, which is on the eastern shore of Maryland. And it was also during my senior year of high school that Miss Sabrina had invited me to a local chapter meeting in Ellicott City. I remember sitting in that first meeting and feeling right at home. The community and the group of people that was at that meeting was truly really inspirational, and I felt like I had found the group that was for me. So I started my undergrad degree in 2016, and my sophomore year of college, Ms. Sabrina had invited me to attend the national conference. It was my first national conference with CCL. A raise of hands, who is this their first conference with CCL? Okay. Oh, a lot of new faces. I love that. So I was in your spot in 2017. And a word of advice while you're here, I know it can be very intimidating, but I encourage you to reach out and talk to people. I know that's something I initially struggled with when I was younger, but everyone's super friendly here, and if there's someone that you really want to talk to, approach them, get them business cards, because you never know when that may be helpful in your future. So the picture on the left-hand side was me during my first national meeting, lobbying on Capitol Hill, which was also a whole new experience for me, and actually navigating the halls of the Senate and House buildings was kind of sparked my interest in my passion for working in more of the policy side. And also, very interestingly, kind of that same year, I ended up being the first volunteer spotlight for CCL, which I thought was really ironic because I'm standing here today as the first volunteer keynote, so it's kind of loops around. So during the national conference, I was really energized and ready to take what I had learned at the national conference and translate that on the regional level. So the following year, I ended up working with Sabrina as her first intern, doing work on the regional level, but then also with the local chapter. So these are some pictures, some faces look familiar for those in the audience. So after I completed my internship, which was during my winter break while I was a sophomore in college, I still wanted to continue being involved because I'm in love with the organization and the people, and I think we have such a great mission and do so many great things that I wanted to bring this to my campus university, or my university's campus. So I ended up forming a campus chapter at Salisbury University. I ended up creating the chapter and kind of led it up until my graduation in 2020. So I graduated in 2020, height of COVID, which for those that were graduating around that time, definitely it was a unique experience. But I graduated in 2020 from Salisbury University with my bachelor's in biology. And I'm very lucky as an undergraduate that I had a lot of mentors and faculty who stood in my corner and advocated for me. And a lot of those resulted in a lot of my experiences as an undergraduate. So when I was working on my bachelor's in biology, I had a lot of faculty who supported me on the research side, so I'm a scientist by training, and that opened up a lot of doors for me, but I also had a lot of faculty who helped me just in general build my network and provided me a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have had if they were not in my corner. So building your network is very important, and finding people who will be in your corner for years to come. So I'm very fortunate that as an undergrad I was awarded the UDAL scholarship, which for those that are in college right now, I encourage you to apply. And this just broadened my network to connect with folks around my age who are engaging in environmental advocacy. It was also while in college that I was introduced to the concept of environmental justice. I kind of always had a concept, or like in the back of my brain, that this was kind of a thing, but it was really in college where I learned the vocabulary and the methods behind organizing, and actually had the chance to connect with a few environmental justice folks and communities. And this passion that I've developed for environmental justice has actually translated into my experience as a scientist. So I'm also very involved with diversity, equity, and inclusion, which are shortened to DEI, in STEM and especially in higher education. And I've continued that into graduate school. So as I had mentioned before, I graduated with my bachelor's in 2020. And it was because of connections that I made as an undergraduate that I found my current position at Louisiana State University. And I am a master's student in the Department of Oceanography and Coastal Sciences. And as a researcher, I do work on harmful algal blooms, so in local bodies of water in Louisiana. So I do a lot of science and research, but I also do a lot of connecting with community members, because harmful algal blooms are a public health concern. So in addition to be a researcher and science communicator, I also am heavily involved outside of research in mentoring and education, and additionally into leadership and advocacy. So bringing back that diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective I'm really interested in. So graduate school can be very hard, and it can feel very isolating. And finding your group of people is very important. So I'm very lucky that I had that while I was involved with CCL in Maryland, and I thought I could maybe find that in CCL Louisiana. So I had reached out to Susan and had met her, and she had plugged me into the Louisiana group. So before I had arrived, prior to COVID, these are some pictures of the awesome Louisiana volunteers engaged in lobby meetings, community outreach events, and workshops. But as we all saw during COVID, we saw a shift into how we organize and respond to climate action. So we have a lot of Zoom meetings. We kind of see a shift to campaigns online, and then as restrictions lift, we see a little bit more in-person events. So COVID, as I'm sure for everyone in the room, it was very hard on you, and it was very hard and changed how we operate as a group and as a community. But in Louisiana, we, as everyone else kind of experienced with COVID, it's an obstacle we had to overcome, but in Louisiana, we also deal with the yearly struggles of hurricanes and natural disasters. So for the past few years I've been in Louisiana, we've had 4 influential hurricanes: Laura, Delta, Zeta, and Ida. Most recently was Ida, which for those that live along the East Coast also felt the effects of that, which was a Category 4 when it made landfall in Louisiana. Just to put in perspective the economic damage that it had on the state, roughly $579 million of damage just to the fishing industry alone. And the pictures on the left-hand side just shows a glimpse into the damage that Ida had. And for those who may not be familiar with Louisiana, a common sign that a hurricane has passed through is blue tarp roofs, especially as insurance is trying to work out claims and all that other stuff. Blue tarps are a very common symbol. But what I think has been very, the kind of really unique experience that I had while being in Louisiana during these times of natural disasters is the community response. So CCL members and non-CCL members came together to support each other, and just that sense of community that's present in these times of natural disasters is mind-blowing, no matter your political affiliation or any other identity you may have. The community response and the coming together of people is super heartwarming to see. So Louisiana is I would consider my second home currently, as I've spent the past couple of years here. The state itself is, living in Louisiana and kind of being a part of that frontline community and truly experiencing that firsthand and seeing my volunteers go through it is kind of is why I continue to stay involved, but why I continue to do what I do in a leadership role is really because of these amazing volunteers. So these volunteers, I could not be where I am without them, and as was mentioned earlier today, volunteers are such a core of who we are as an organization, and we wouldn't be able to do what we've done without our volunteers. So these are pictures featuring some amazing folks in my region, and a lot of these folks have helped me grow as a person, so I like being in leadership roles, but I don't necessarily see myself as a leader, but they've helped me kind of develop that confidence and that support system that's helped me to grow as a person, but actually seeing them grow as individuals has been super rewarding. Also, a lot of these volunteers I've made connections with and friendships with that I will have for years to come. And not everyone is pictured. I couldn't fit everyone on this slide, but I truly love the people that I work with as Louisiana State Coordinator. And for those that are on Zoom, I love you all. And I wouldn't be where I am without you all. So, I've talked a lot about volunteers, so I want to end with a quote from the late Marshall Saunders, who I had the opportunity to hear talk in person. And one of my favorite quotes from him was, "Constancy is my favorite virtue. So many people will go for a little while and get excited for a year or two, but it's really constancy that gets things done." And I think this quote truly embodies volunteers within this organization. And whether you are a new volunteer, a prolonged CCL volunteer, like myself, having that continued passion and excitement is what I know keeps me going and keeps other volunteers going to get shit done, as they say. So.
Please welcome Allison Cabisco.
Hi. So good to see everyone. Good morning. Sorry to take a couple minutes away from your break, but I'm so excited to plan this in-person event for you all. You know, planning virtual events over the past 2.5 years were great too, but there's nothing like being back here at the Omni Shoreham Hotel and seeing all of your friends from all over the country, right? It's awesome. So, welcome back, and I'm just gonna go over a few things so you're ready for today and tomorrow. So you should have received a program book when you registered, whoops, knew I was gonna do that. When you registered either this morning or last night when you checked in with our wonderful interns. So try to hold on to that program book because we have just enough for everyone. And the program has all the important information that you need for the conference. So how to connect to the Wi-Fi, how to download the mobile app if you prefer to look at the schedule on your phone. The whole schedule is in there, the breakout session descriptions, and the hotel map is on the back cover, so that's really easy to find, unlike some of the meeting rooms. So good thing we have a lot of CCL staff and interns around to help you find your way throughout today and tomorrow. Also in the program on page 5, there's some advice on how to get active on social media through the conference. So we love to see your content and share it, so be sure to follow CCL's social media accounts and also tag us. And then we also have some hashtags for the conference, so be sure to check that out on page 5. So a quick look at how today will go. So after I'm finished up here, we have some breakout sessions that start at 10:20. So depending on your level in CCL, we have 4 choices for you. So if you're new to CCL or you want to brush up on your lobbying skills, we have the climate advocate training, which is going to be right here in the Regency Ballroom, so you don't have to go anywhere. If you're a group leader, liaison, a state coordinator, or a regional coordinator, we have a leadership training in the ambassador room, so that's the room directly across the hall. We have an Active Hope workshop, which will help build your resilience and renew your activism, and that workshop will be in the Palladian Ballroom. And then we have a workshop called Building Political Will, so that will review what CCL calls the 5 levers of political will and how to find your role within your chapter. So that's in the Empire Room. There will be a lunch break, and then try to be back by 2 o'clock in your seats for our keynote speaker, Alex Flint, and he'll talk through his experience with budget reconciliation and how we can connect that with our work that we do. We'll have a legislative update with Vice President of Government Affairs, Dr. Danny Richter, and Danny will also set us up for our new breakout sessions called Insider's Guide to Working with Your Member of Congress, which those will start at 4 o'clock. Then after the dinner break, make sure you come back at 8 o'clock. We'll have a DJ come in, so we'll have a nice little dance party, and we'll also have a game room open if you want to play some board games. And our program continues tomorrow, so we have our keynotes, Amanda Ripley and Nwandi Lawson, starting at about 9:05. And then we have a keynote panel where we have speakers coming in from 3 great organizations. We'll hear an update from Citizens Climate International. We're gonna take a group photo. So in years past, we've went and taken a photo on Capitol Hill, so we're gonna try and repeat that here in the hotel, because we definitely wanna capture how many of you made it all the way to DC this year. But we'll give you more details about that tomorrow. Then we have a lunch break, and after lunch, we'll enjoy our breakout sessions and a closing keynote with Bill Shireman. Then we cap off our wonderful conference experience with a reception here in the Regency Ballroom, and that will be at 7 p.m., and you won't want to miss it because we're gonna have a special guest, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island, so you won't want to miss it. Also keep in mind that we have action teams tabling in the executive room, so if you want to learn a little bit about CCL's action teams, definitely plan to stop by during the breaks. So I know it's a lot, but I also know that CCLers can handle anything, so go get them. Thank you, enjoy the conference, and have fun.
Of course. We just want to give a huge thank you to Allison, because without you and your tireless work, there would be no conference. So I'd like us all to just take a moment and give Allison a huge round of applause.
Oh, it's so pretty.
I don't want to be alone.